April 28, 1988. A Boeing 737 carrying 95 people cruises high above Hawaii, routine and calm, until, in an instant, the roof rips away and turns the aircraft into a wind-lashed shell. In the split second it takes for explosive decompression to claim a life, Aloha Airlines 243 becomes aviation's most chilling convertible. How did a trusted jet lose nearly 20 feet of its roof with no warning and still make it to the runway? To uncover the astonishing truth behind the disappearing roof, we have to revisit every decision, every missed clue, and every moment of survival that shaped one of history's most shocking mid-air catastrophes. At 24,000 feet above the Pacific, the routine hum of flight is shattered. There's a deafening crack, a sound like thunder inside a tin can. In a heartbeat, the ceiling is gone. An 18-foot section of the fuselage rips away, exposing rows of startled passengers to the open sky. The force of the decompression is brutal. Air rushes out with explosive violence, tearing loose seat cushions, papers, and clothing. The wind howls through the cabin, drowning out screams. Oxygen masks whip wildly, some never dropping at all. Passengers clutch armrests, their hair and faces blasted by the gale. The temperature plummets. Someone tries to shout, but the words are snatched away by the roar. Where there was once a calm, pressurized cabin, there's now chaos. Debris swirling, metal edges jagged and exposed, sunlight flooding through the gaping hole above. Up front, the cockpit door is gone. Dials rattle, alarms blare, and blue sky replaces the ceiling. The pilots grip their controls, feeling the aircraft shudder and flex. In the cabin, the shock is immediate and total. A flight attendant standing near row 5 vanishes in an instant, swept away with no time to react. The rest are left gripping seats, eyes wide in disbelief. Every second stretches. The air is thin, cold, and filled with the shriek of wind. Blood from flying debris spatters the walls. Some passengers are thrown against the backs of seats, others pinned by the force. The plane, now a battered shell, keeps flying, its roof torn away, its passengers exposed to the elements at jet speed. The sight of Maui far below offers no comfort. For those still conscious, survival is reduced to a single instinct: hold on. The scale of the disaster is impossible to process. A trusted jet, now a convertible, thunders on through the sky. What caused the roof to disappear? How could this happen without warning? The answers are buried somewhere in the twisted metal and the stunned silence that follows the storm. Captain Robert Schornsteimer and First Officer Mimi Tompkins faced a cockpit transformed by disaster. The roar of the wind drowned out alarms, and blue sky stared back where the ceiling had been. Tompkins, at the controls when the decompression hit, steadied the aircraft as it bucked and shook. Schornsteimer took command, deploying speed brakes and beginning a steep emergency descent over 4,000 feet per minute. The controls felt loose, the jet barely responsive, but training took over. Tompkins handled radio calls, her voice cutting through static and panic to declare a mayday and request emergency crews at Maui. Every instruction came under pressure, each word fighting against the shriek of the open fuselage. Inside the cabin, survival meant clinging to anything solid. Passengers pressed themselves into seats, hands white-knuckled on armrests. The wind tore at them, hurling debris and sending a chill deep into their bones. Screams vanished into the slipstream. Oxygen masks failed to drop for some, leaving them gasping in thin air. 7 people suffered serious injuries, cuts from flying metal, bruises from being slammed by the force. A flight attendant, bloodied but conscious, crawled along the aisle, checking on the wounded and shouting reassurance no one could hear. The loss of Clarabelle Lansing, swept away in an instant, haunted the crew even as they fought to keep everyone else alive. As the crippled jet raced toward Maui, the pilots coordinated every move. The approach would be fast, the landing hard, but there was no other choice. Emergency slides would be needed on touchdown. In the final moments, Tompkins relayed their intentions. "We need emergency equipment." Tower cleared them to land. The battered 737 touched down at a speed well above normal, brakes screeching, metal groaning. The survivors staggered out, dazed and bloodied, some barefoot, some in shock, all grateful to stand on solid ground. Out of 95 on board, only 1 was lost, a miracle measured against the violence of the sky. The skill and calm of the crew and the endurance of the passengers turned an unthinkable disaster into a story of survival that would demand answers for years to come. Within hours of the landing, the investigation began with a single priority: gather every possible piece of evidence. On the tarmac in Maui, NTSB technicians and FAA inspectors worked side by side, tagging and logging fragments of the fuselage. Each jagged panel, every piece of torn insulation, and all loose cabin fittings were assigned chain of custody numbers before being boxed for shipment. The largest section, a battered crown panel almost 18 feet long, dominated the evidence list, its edges curled and its rivet lines exposed. Smaller shards, some no bigger than a hand, were mapped against cabin seating charts to reconstruct their original positions. Flight logbooks and maintenance records followed a similar path. Aloha's technical staff produced cycle counts for N73711, 89,680 cycles, a staggering figure for any jet, let alone one built in the early 1970s. Inspectors pored over handwritten notes and service stamps, cross-referencing inspection intervals, prior repairs, and corrosion reports. Each entry, whether routine or unusual, was copied and indexed for laboratory review. At the NTSB's materials lab, the intake process was meticulous. Panels were photographed, measured, and cataloged with accession numbers. Technicians used magnifiers to scan for telltale clues, discoloration, corrosion pits, or faint lines near rivet holes. The most critical pieces, including sections of the S10L lap joint, were set aside for advanced analysis. Every step, from initial recovery to lab entry, was documented in a chain that would later allow investigators to match physical evidence to logbook entries and flight histories. The sheer volume of material was daunting. Hundreds of pages of maintenance logs, dozens of skin panels, and a sprawling map of debris. Yet each item, no matter how small, was treated as a potential key to the mystery. The evidence room filled with the scent of jet fuel and salt air, a silent reminder of the flight's violent end. For the technicians, the task was clear: catalog everything, miss nothing, and prepare for the next phase. Forensic analysis that would probe the hidden story inside every crack and rivet. Speculation spread quickly in the hours after the accident. Some pointed to sabotage, others to a hidden manufacturing flaw. On the ground in Maui, investigators faced a puzzle that defied easy answers. The scale of the damage suggested a force far beyond what routine wear should produce. Yet there was no sign of explosives, no chemical residue, and no evidence of tampering. The question hung in the air. What could rip the roof from a jet cruising at altitude without warning? Aloha Airlines operated under conditions few airlines faced. Their Boeing 737s flew up to 20 short hops a day, leaping from island to island, each flight a cycle of pressurization and release. Over years, this relentless schedule racked up tens of thousands of cycles, far more than the original design anticipated. Maintenance teams worked through the night, often with tight turnarounds and a mandate to keep planes flying. Inspections relied heavily on visual checks, with little time or equipment for deeper, non-destructive testing. Mechanics, some with decades of experience, developed a nose for trouble but worked under the pressure of quick departures and packed schedules. Analysts debated the plausibility of a single catastrophic defect. Some wondered if a hidden crack or a botched repair had gone unnoticed. Others raised the specter of deliberate sabotage, but the evidence didn't fit. The fracture lines on the recovered panels didn't show the telltale signs of an explosive device or foreign object. Instead, the damage pattern hinted at a slow, silent process, one that might escape even a careful eye. Attention soon turned to the lap joints along the fuselage, especially the S-10L seam. These joints, which held the skin of the aircraft together, were known to be vulnerable in high-cycle environments. Boeing's own engineers had warned of potential fatigue in these areas, but the industry's inspection standards hadn't kept pace with the realities of island-hopping service. Maintenance logs revealed gaps and inconsistencies, with some inspections checking only for obvious cracks, not the subtle, multi-site fatigue that could grow under the surface. The culture at Aloha, shaped by economic necessity and routine exposure to salt air, accepted corrosion and minor cracking as the price of doing business. In the lab, materials scientists prepared to test the physical evidence. Only a microscopic examination would settle the debate. Until then, every theory remained on the table, each one a reminder that in aviation, what can't be seen can still bring down a plane. A single section of torn aluminum, tagged S10L, sits under a powerful microscope. Under the lens, the story changes from chaos to something almost eerily ordered. The fracture surface, dull gray and uneven, reveals a series of fine lines, fatigue striations, etched like tree rings across the metal. Each line marks a cycle, one pressurization, one release, again and again, tens of thousands of times. The NTSB metallurgist points to the rivet holes along the lap joint. Here, at the upper row, the cracks began, not as one dramatic flaw, but as dozens of tiny fissures radiating out from the edges. SEM images show the cracks starting at multiple sites, some so small they would be invisible to the naked eye. Over time, these micro cracks grew step by step. their growth marked by faint beach marks, arcs that speak of pauses and surges as the metal flexed under pressure. Animation brings the process to life. The lap joint, cold bonded and riveted, flexes with each simulated flight. At first the adhesive holds, but years of salt air and moisture creep in, weakening the bond. Corrosion takes root, eating away at the protective layer. With every cycle, stress concentrates around the rivet holes, especially where the countersunk edges create sharp corners. The cracks multiply, branching and spreading beneath the outer skin. Eventually they link up, hidden beneath layers of aluminum and paint, undetectable by a quick visual check. When the cracks finally coalesce, the structure can no longer contain the pressure. The skin peels away in an instant, following the path mapped years before under the microscope. The metallurgist's commentary is measured, almost clinical. The fracture face showed multiple origins, classic for multi-site fatigue, a silent threat growing for years. The evidence is undeniable. This was not sabotage, nor a single manufacturing error. The S10L joint failed because of a slow, relentless process. Multi-site fatigue driven by nearly 90,000 cycles in a harsh environment. The physical mystery is solved in the lab, with every striation and crack telling the same story. The implications stretch far beyond a single airplane, raising questions for airlines, manufacturers, and regulators about what else might be lurking, invisible, just beneath the surface. The final report from the National Transportation Safety Board drew a clear line between the invisible cracks inside Aloha 243 and the rules that governed airline safety. Investigators wrote that undetected multi-site fatigue cracks at the S10L lap joint, grown silently over years of intense use, were the direct cause of the accident. But the findings didn't stop at metallurgy. The NTSB's conclusions called out inspection routines, maintenance cultures, and regulatory gaps that left aging jets vulnerable. The FAA responded with sweeping changes. Within 2 years, a new airworthiness directive, AD 90-06-02, required all early 737s with cold-bonded lap joints to undergo detailed visual and eddy current inspections, not just at S10L, but at every susceptible seam. The order set new thresholds. Aircraft that had reached 50,000 cycles needed immediate inspection, with repeat checks every 300 cycles. Repairs became mandatory at the first sign of a crack, no matter how small. Boeing issued revised service bulletins, spelling out step-by-step procedures for non-destructive testing and mapping out exactly which lap joints needed scrutiny. Airlines worldwide scrambled to comply, grounding jets for urgent inspections. The directives forced operators to rethink their approach to aging aircraft. Visual checks alone were no longer enough. Maintenance teams had to adopt advanced tools, eddy current probes, ultrasonic scanners, borescopes, to uncover cracks hidden beneath paint and sealant. Regulators tracked compliance, demanding records for every inspection and repair. These changes rippled through the industry, prompting broader debates about how long commercial jets could safely fly and what kinds of environments accelerated structural aging. Yet the aftermath left questions that still echo. Why did so many visual inspections miss the growing cracks? Did economic pressures and operational demands at Aloha and other high-frequency carriers discourage deeper checks? Could a similar failure still hide inside another high-cycle jet, waiting for the right combination of stress and neglect? The story of Aloha 243 became a warning. written into the language of federal directives and maintenance manuals. Even as safety improved, the accident remained a reminder that what can't be seen can still change everything. The risk of fatigue, corrosion, and missed warning signs lingers wherever aircraft outlast the assumptions of their designers. In the end, the lessons of 1988 reshaped airworthiness standards, but the vigilance they demand is never truly finished. On April 28, 1988, Aloha Airlines Flight 243 lost an 18-foot section of its roof at 24,000 feet, resulting in one fatality and dozens of injuries. Investigators traced the cause to multi-site fatigue cracking and corrosion at the S10L lap joint, a flaw invisible to routine visual checks. The NTSB report documented maintenance lapses and a high cycle environment that pushed the Boeing 737-200 beyond its design assumptions. As a direct result, the FAA issued new airworthiness directives, mandating enhanced inspections for aging aircraft. Yet, some questions remain. Not all fatigue cracks were visible, and records show gaps in inspection protocols that have never been fully explained. Today, every pressurized aircraft is subject to more rigorous oversight. But the lessons from Flight 243 are still cited in safety manuals worldwide. The official record stands as evidence. Vigilance is the most critical defense against disaster in the sky.